Edison. We really enjoy having Helen along, or Lynn along, or Peter along. But then you say, well, yeah, okay, so what value are Edison actually bringing to you? And they say, well, we really enjoy working with Helen and Peter, and they're really good. And yeah, so what value? And actually, nobody could articulate what it was that we were doing that was helping them get towards their goals. So that was one of the big ding-dongs for us. So we had a culture we needed to evolve. Part of that culture was actually about helping the people that were actually working with schools to be able to articulate the value that we were delivering. But also within the business, everybody thought, it was a typical scenario in a startup business in many ways, I suppose, everybody thought the sales was somebody else's job. You know, the fact that, you know, you're interested, I'll get somebody from sales to come and talk to you. But we were a tiny company, and actually sales was kind of half of me and half of somebody else. And we were also getting ourselves to a situation where we were trying to move towards a B2G environment. We were trying to get involved in bigger opportunities. Things were coming along, like opportunities to run schools and things like that. And we just weren't there. We weren't ready to do it. And we said, okay, guys, we actually need to start thinking about how we can change the culture within the company to prepare ourselves for the big future that we actually see is coming along. And there were some big opportunities that were actually coming along. Third thing I put on the list there is about taking E2 to market. And I need just to sort of pause for a moment to tell you what E2 is. Company focus on research, recognising that fundamentally most of the people who work for the business come from local authorities, come from schools and that kind of background. There was absolute agreement across the piece that actually the model that people were using, the kernel of a secondary school, was bust. Okay? And much as though there are successful schools out there that are continually refining the engine, improving the lubricant, boring it out and things like that, they were making the machine as efficient as they possibly could. It was reaching the stage where it actually was no longer really fit for purpose. Okay? And actually, it's quite good when you go and talk to the market about that and you go and test that as part of the Breese process. People say, yeah, we absolutely agree. We do need to be thinking about this in a very different way. So we said, well, okay, what are we going to do about it? And that's where we were very fortunate, got the funding, got the backing to go and invest in a research program, very much as the company did in its early days, to say, okay, if you were starting to design a secondary school today to meet the challenges, not that we kind of see today, but the challenges that we think we're going to be seeing in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, what's it going to look like? And it is going to be fundamentally different because children actually have changed quite significantly, their awarenesses, their interests and things like that. And so we actually went off and we spent about £1 million in an R&D program to say, what is the new kernel of a secondary school? And that's what E2 is. It's been about an 18-month project, and it's going to be completing its development around about September. And it is a complete operating system for a secondary school. Okay? Now, one of the big issues that we've actually got in there is, okay, we're investing all of this money in developing E2. How the hell are we going to go and sell it? Because sure as hell, we ain't organised to do it. So that's where we started to move on to thinking, well, okay, that's why we need to involve Ian. That's why we actually need to get involved, because we've got to prepare ourselves for a brave new future. So that's a little bit about the market, a little bit about us, and that real challenge we were facing in terms of trying to say, what's our future and how are we actually going to sell successfully within that market. Right, a bit about the what. What do we want to get out of the collaboration? The 5-stage plan and the rollout. So I thought I'd just whiz you through what we've actually been doing and how it's been going. So, our objectives. 3 things I think we had. We needed, above all, we had to have a go-to-market strategy for E2. We needed to have something that was going to make this product a success, recognising that it really is quite a radical step forward for any customer anywhere. We had to develop our sales capacity, we had to develop our sales capability, and we had to do that by actually making business development and sales a company-wide issue, because we aren't big enough to be able to do those things without having the whole company engaged. And we had to develop something that was going to be replicable, because actually there's a whole load of other things we do as an organisation that we actually need to build on. So we had a 5-stage plan. We worked with Ian, and stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, you can see the kind of things that were actually involved there. And this was round about end of June last year, wasn't it? Well, we got together and said, okay, what are we going to try and do? How are we going to do it? And I thought I'd just whiz you through some of those steps. The first bit, stage 1, was about defining our 5 Ps. And I've got a few slides on that. I'm not going to go through them in detail. But this was actually about pulling together the senior team of the organisation and saying, okay guys, what are we actually going to try and do? What's it going to look like? How are we going to do it? How are we going to get there? And I would imagine what's down there is a reasonably solid definition of what we try to achieve. We knew that there were some pretty serious people implications of what we were actually trying to do. We knew we had to get something that was going to involve all the capabilities and capacities within the company. We actually knew that we had huge capability within the organisation that we just weren't tapping. Some really, really talented people that we'd recruited, pulled on board, because they've got massive experience, great enthusiasm and a great passion for what we're trying to achieve. We needed to find a way to actually go about unlocking it. And you can see, we looked at the pace. The idea was we were going to start around about June, and we were going to deliver the main bulk of the work by December, which we did pretty well on target. And we were going to measure how we did it. We were going to make sure we had a delivery date for E2. That's September this year. We were going to spend time getting our customers to confirm the messages. So to come back to that, that was the hardest bit of the whole process. And we were going to make sure that all the employees were confident to do it. We were going to get ourselves to a stage where we genuinely were having wider, higher and deeper customer engagement. I think that's something that I'll come back to, but that's certainly been very successful. And we were going to get some enthusiastic reception, which again we're moving into now. And we were going to make sure we used the value wheel. So those things have kind of rolled forward. That was the first step, trying to get that sort of together. We then went off and had the 2-day conference when we pulled in a whole load of people from all around the company. I think there was about 10 of us there. Well, 10 of us, for a company of our size, that's a lot of people. We pulled everybody together for 2 days to say, okay guys, how are we going to roll this out? I'm not going to say it was a disaster, because it wasn't a disaster. It was actually a really positive event. However, all I remember is taking Ian off to the pub at the end of the first day for something to eat, and him just looking at me and thinking, don't understand. It's not, don't understand. There was something that just wasn't quite right. And actually, we went back for the second day, and we actually had a good second day, didn't we? But it still wasn't quite right. Something wasn't biting. Now, the people that we actually had involved in that session represented the entire company. We had people who were responsible for delivering in schools. We had people who were actually responsible for the logistics and administration in the office. We had the MD was there. You know, we had a really good representation from across the company. But it didn't crystallise. We learnt a load of stuff. You know, we learnt the practicalities of how to actually handle the value wheel. So, the process, actually, we went through, we thought, yeah, we can do that, we can replicate that. We got a great long jobs list out the end of it, of loads and loads of stuff that we actually had to go and do. But nobody really understood why we had to go and do it. And it was that fundamental recognition that actually we were not all on the same page. We actually all went into this great session that was going to suddenly reveal E2 to us in all its glory, with all of its wonderful sales strategies, and we suddenly realised that we actually didn't all understand what the hell it was. And that was a bit of a kind of shock at that time, wasn't it? I keep on looking at Ian because I think he's still stressed out by it. But we did get out of it. We got some bare bones of what we thought the value wheel was about. We really understood at the end of it what we thought our functional value was, and that's actually changed very little since that 2-day conference. We did get the views of a client along there. The problem was, at the end of the day, it wasn't the right client, because actually it wasn't somebody that E2 was really going to go and impact on, and we didn't realise that at the time when we started. I say we got a long to-do list, and well, we got lots of enthusiasm, because people were looking at it and saying, yeah, this is really good, this stuff, got it. We got some vocabulary. So we kind of started sharing some words, and people started, I mean, those organisations have been involved with this. You've probably got people who wander around inside your offices and sort of go, it's up here somewhere. No, we're down there at the moment. So people started doing those kinds of things, but it wasn't quite there. And then it was, it then came down to Little Venice, and this was Ian sort of scratching his head, let's go and have a cup of coffee a week or so later. And we ended up in Little Venice. It was a day something like that. We were sat outside having a coffee, and eventually we actually worked out the thing that we just hadn't done as part of the process was to really define what the hell this product was, E2. The product development people knew that they had a load of stuff that they developed, and they had their opinion of what it was. The problem is that the other people within the business hadn't really joined it up. It's a big, complicated operating system for an entire secondary school, and they hadn't done it. So, having done that, we then went off and we actually did some definitions, and we said, okay, do we actually know what this thing is? And lo and behold, everything then started falling into place with remarkable speed. We then went out and started doing some testing. I said you've got to get the right customers involved, remembering that to this point all of our business predominantly had been with